Greece is not defined by a single landscape, a single island, or a single era. It is a country built from layers, geological, historical, and cultural, compressed into a territory that appears small on a map, yet vast in meaning. Here, land and sea are inseparable. The coastline stretches for more than 13,000 kilometers, broken into countless bays, peninsulas, and islands. Over 6,000 islands and islets scatter across the Aegean and Ionian Seas, more than any other country in Europe, forming a geography where movement by water-shaped civilizations long before Rhodes ever existed. This is a place where marble and salt air coexist, where mountains rise abruptly from the sea, and villages cling to slopes that seem to defy gravity. The contrast is constant fertile valleys beside barren cliffs, quiet inland plains opening suddenly onto vast horizons of blue. Known to its people as Hellas, Greece, carries a name that echoes through philosophy, mythology, science, and art. Its influence extends far beyond its borders, rooted in ideas that shaped how the world understands democracy, reason, beauty, and the human condition. Sunlight defines the rhythm of life here. In many regions, the sun shines for more than 250 days each year, shaping architecture, agriculture, and daily movement. Olive groves stretch across hills and plains, forming one of the oldest continuous agricultural landscapes on Earth. Greece remains one of the world's leading producers of olive oil, not as an industry alone, but as a living tradition embedded in land and culture. Beneath the surface, the country holds one of the highest concentrations of archaeological sites on the planet. Ancient cities, sanctuaries, theaters, and temples lie scattered across islands and mainland alike, many still standing where they were built thousands of years ago. History here is not isolated inside museums. It exists in open air, integrated into the terrain. From the peaks of Mount Olympus to the depths of the Aegean seabed, from volcanic islands shaped by fire to forests shaped by wind and erosion, Greece reveals itself as a geographic mosaic. Each region carries its own identity, shaped by isolation, climate, and centuries of human presence. This journey moves through that mosaic across islands, cities, and landscapes, not as a checklist of destinations, but as a continuous exploration of how land time and civilization have shaped one another. Geographically, Greece can be understood as a system of interconnected zones. The mainland, anchored by cities such as Athens and Thessaloniki, forms the political and historical core. Rugged mountains dominate much of the interior, creating natural barriers that influenced settlement patterns and regional identities for centuries. To the southeast lie the Cyclades, a constellation of islands defined by white stone, strong winds, and clear light. These islands became icons not by accident, but through a unique interaction between geology and human adaptation. Further south, Crete stands apart, the largest Greek island with its own mountain ranges, fertile plains, and a history that predates much of classical Greece. Its scale and diversity make it almost a continent in miniature. To the west, the Ionian Islands face a different sea and climate. Looser vegetation and softer landscapes reflect higher rainfall and a long period of Venetian influence. Additional island groups, including the Dodecanese Sporadi and Saronic Gulf Islands, extend Greece's reach in every direction, each shaped by distinct geological and historical forces. Together, these regions form one of Europe's most complex coastal systems, a geography where isolation and connection exist simultaneously. Athens. Athens is often described as the cradle of Western civilization, but its significance lies not in monuments alone. It lies in ideas that reshaped human governance. Situated on the Attica Peninsula, Athens developed in a region with limited agricultural resources. This scarcity encouraged trade, maritime expansion, and political experimentation rather than territorial conquest. By the 5th century BCE, Athens introduced a radical concept: direct democracy. Citizens, though limited by modern standards, participated directly in decision-making, lawmaking, and public debate. This system was imperfect and exclusionary, yet revolutionary for its time. The Acropolis dominates the city, crowned by the Parthenon, a structure built not only as a temple, but as a statement of civic identity. Its proportions, alignment, and materials reflect advanced understanding of mathematics, optics, and symbolism. Beyond architecture, Athens produced philosophers, dramatists, historians, and scientists whose ideas continue to shape modern thought. Figures such as Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle questioned ethics, politics, and reality itself. Athens also experienced decline, conquest, and transformation. Roman, Byzantine, Ottoman, and modern layers coexist across the city, revealing continuity rather than collapse. Athens is not a relic of the past. It is a living record of how ideas survive, regimes, borders, and centuries. Zakynthos. Zakynthos lies in the Ionian Sea, west of mainland Greece, shaped by seismic forces and relentless coastal erosion. Unlike the harsher landscapes of the Aegean, the Ionian Islands are defined by softer limestone deep waters and dramatic vertical cliffs. The island's coastline is its most defining feature. Over thousands of years, waves carved arches, caves, and steep limestone walls that plunge directly into the sea. The famous coves and beaches here exist not because of gentle sand accumulation, but because rock collapsed, fractured, and reshaped under tectonic stress. Zakynthos sits near an active fault line. Earthquakes have repeatedly altered its terrain, including a major event in 1953 that reshaped large parts of the island. What stands today is the result of reconstruction layered over ancient geography. Beneath the waterline, Zakynthos hosts one of the most important marine ecosystems in the Mediterranean. Its surrounding seas are a breeding ground for the endangered loggerhead. Sea turtle Crete, drawn here by warm currents and sheltered bays. Zakynthos is not a postcard island created for tourism. It is a geological intersection of land instability, marine life, and erosion. A place where the Mediterranean reveals its raw structural power. Oia. Oia is perched on the northern rim of Santorini, an island formed by one of the largest volcanic eruptions in recorded human history. The settlement sits directly on the caldera, the collapsed remains of a prehistoric volcano whose explosion reshaped the entire Aegean region. The cliffs beneath Oia descend hundreds of meters into the sea, revealing layers of volcanic ash pumice and lava deposits. These strata act as a visible timeline of eruptions spanning thousands of years. Architecture in Oia developed as a response to instability. Traditional structures were carved partially into the volcanic rock using the earth itself as insulation against heat wind and seismic movement. Whitewashed exteriors reflect sunlight, reducing thermal stress in an environment with minimal vegetation. The settlement's orientation is not decorative, it is functional. Buildings face outward toward the caldera, maximizing airflow and minimizing exposure to prevailing winds from the interior. Oia exists in constant tension with the land beneath it. Its beauty is inseparable from geological risk, shaped by the same forces that once erased entire civilizations in the region. Corfu. Corfu occupies a different geographic and historical position than much of Greece. Located in the Ionian Sea, close to the coasts of Albania and Italy, the island has always looked outward toward Western Europe, rather than east toward the Aegean world. Unlike most Greek islands, Corfu is remarkably green. Higher rainfall and fertile soil support dense forests, rolling hills, and extensive olive groves. This landscape sets it apart visually and ecologically from the drier islands of the Cyclades. Corfu's strategic location made it one of the most contested territories in the eastern Mediterranean. Over the centuries, it was controlled by the Romans, Byzantines, Venetians, French, and British, yet notably never occupied by the Ottoman Empire. As a result, its architecture and urban planning reflect Western European influences rather than Ottoman design. The old town of Corfu is one of the best preserved fortified cities in Europe. Massive stone walls, bastions, and narrow streets were constructed by the Venetians to protect the island from repeated naval assaults. These fortifications were among the most advanced of their time, designed to withstand prolonged sieges and artillery fire. Under British rule in the 19th century, Corfu became a center of administration and education. Rhodes' neoclassical buildings and public squares were added, shaping much of the island's modern infrastructure. Even today, British architectural elements coexist with Venetian fortresses and Byzantine churches. The island's coastline alternates between rugged cliffs in the northwest and calm bays in the east and south. Natural harbors made Corfu a key naval base, while inland villages developed around agriculture and trade. Culturally, Corfu developed musical traditions distinct from the rest of Greece, particularly in choral and orchestral music, a legacy of Venetian and European influence. This difference reflects the island's long-standing role as a cultural bridge between Greece and the West. Corfu represents a version of Greece shaped by diplomacy, fortification, and external exchange, a reminder that Greek identity has never been singular or static. Santorini. Santorini is not defined by gradual change, but by sudden transformation. Its present form is the result of one of the largest volcanic eruptions in human history. Around the 16th century BCE, a massive eruption collapsed the central part of the island, creating a submerged caldera several kilometers wide. What remains today is a crescent-shaped rim of cliffs rising sharply from the sea, with smaller volcanic islands scattered at the center. The eruption reshaped not only the island, but the wider region. Ash deposits spread across the eastern Mediterranean, and the event is believed to have contributed to the decline of the Minoan civilization on nearby Crete. Santorini's geology dominates every aspect of its environment. The soil is volcanic porous and low in organic matter, forcing agriculture to adapt in unique ways. Vineyards are cultivated in low circular formations close to the ground to protect grapes from wind and retain moisture. These practices have remained largely unchanged for centuries. The island's settlements are built directly into the caldera cliffs. Whitewashed structures reflect sunlight and reduce heat absorption, while narrow paths and terraces follow the contours of the rock. Architecture here is not decorative. It is a direct response to terrain, climate, and seismic risk. Archaeological excavations at Acropolis reveal a Bronze Age settlement preserved beneath volcanic ash. Multi-story buildings, drainage systems, and wall paintings indicate a highly organized society with strong connections to the wider Aegean world. Santorini's dramatic appearance often overshadows its deeper significance. Beneath the visual spectacle lies a record of how human societies adapt to extreme geological events. The island is both a reminder of nature's destructive power and an example of long-term resilience. Santorini is not frozen in time. It is a landscape still shaped by volcanic forces, seismic activity, and erosion. Its beauty is inseparable from the event that nearly erased it. Rhodes. Rhodes stands at the southeastern edge of the Aegean Sea, closer to Asia Minor than to mainland Greece. For thousands of years, this position placed the island directly in the path of empires, moving between east and west. The island's terrain is rugged and strategic. Mountain ridges dominate the interior, while natural harbors line the coast. These features made Rhodes a naval stronghold long before the classical era. Ancient Greek city-states flourished here, but it was during the medieval period that Rhodes gained its most formidable identity. In the 14th century, the Knights Hospitaller transformed Rhodes into one of the most heavily fortified cities in Europe. Massive stone walls, moats, towers, and gates were constructed using advanced military engineering of the time. These defenses were designed not only to repel armies, but to withstand prolonged sieges and naval bombardment. The medieval city of Rhodes remains one of the best preserved fortified cities in the world. Its Street of the Knights palaces, hospitals, and bastions reveal a rare continuity of urban military design. Unlike many medieval cities, Rhodes was never abandoned. It evolved layer by layer through Ottoman and later Italian rule. Beyond its walls, Rhodes preserves remnants of far older civilizations. Ancient Acropolis's temples and harbors testify to its role as a major center of trade shipbuilding and maritime law in antiquity. The island was also home to the Colossus of Rhodes, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, symbolizing its power and wealth. Rhodes is not defined by a single era. It is a place where classical Greece, medieval Europe, and the Eastern Mediterranean intersect, a stone record of shifting borders and enduring strategic value. Delphi. Delphi occupies a dramatic position on the slopes of Mount Parnassus, overlooking a deep valley that opens toward the Gulf of Corinth. In antiquity, this location was believed to be the physical center of the world. According to Greek mythology, Zeus released 2 eagles from opposite ends of the earth. They met at Delphi, marking it as the omphalos, the navel of the world. While myth framed its significance, geography reinforced it. Delphi lay at a crossroads connecting northern and southern Greece, inland regions, and coastal routes. The sanctuary of Apollo at Delphi became the most influential religious center in the ancient Greek world. City-states and kings traveled here to consult the oracle before wars, colonization, and major political decisions. The priestess known as the Pythia delivered prophecies believed to be inspired directly by Apollo. Archaeological evidence suggests that geological features beneath the site released gases, possibly contributing to the altered states associated with prophecy. Whether symbolic or physical, Delphi's authority shaped centuries of Greek decision-making. The sanctuary complex was monumental. Temples, treasuries, theaters, and athletic facilities were built along the mountain slope, aligned with the terrain rather than imposed upon it. The sacred way wound upward through the site, passing offerings from city-states eager to demonstrate power and devotion. Delphi was not a city-state of its own. Its influence came from neutrality and sacred authority. Even rival powers recognized its importance, making it one of the few places respected across political divides. Today, Delphi stands as a reminder that ancient Greece was bound together. not only by politics and war, but by shared belief systems that shaped collective identity. Meteora. Meteora rises abruptly from the plains of central Greece. A forest of towering rock pillars formed millions of years ago by erosion and tectonic uplift. These formations appear almost unnatural, as if carved deliberately rather than shaped by time. Beginning in the 14th century, Eastern Orthodox monks sought refuge atop these pillars. In an era of political instability and invasion, isolation offered both safety and spiritual focus. Monasteries were built directly onto the summits, accessible only by ropes, ladders, and pulley systems. The location was chosen not for comfort, but for separation. Meteora's monasteries were intended to exist apart from the world below, suspended between earth and sky. Construction required extraordinary effort, with materials hauled upward by hand over sheer cliffs. At their peak, more than 20 monasteries operated in Meteora. Today, 6 remain active, preserving centuries-old frescoes, manuscripts, and architectural traditions. The buildings blend seamlessly with the rock, using natural contours as structural foundations. Meteora represents a rare union of geology and belief. The landscape dictated the form of worship, and the act of reaching the monasteries became part of the spiritual journey itself. Unlike many religious sites built for visibility and access, Meteora was designed for withdrawal. Its endurance reflects not expansion, but preservation, a commitment to continuity in a changing world. Posidi Cape. Posidi Cape extends into the Aegean Sea from the western edge of the Cassandra Peninsula in northern Greece. Unlike cliffs or islands, this cape is formed almost entirely by sediment movement. Currents from both sides of the peninsula deposit sandshell fragments and fine gravel, slowly pushing the land outward into the sea. The result is a narrow, shifting strip of land that changes shape year after year. There are no permanent structures at the tip of Posidi. The ground beneath is unstable, constantly reshaped by wind and water. What exists today may vanish or reform elsewhere within a single season. This environment creates a rare coastal ecosystem. Shallow waters, strong sunlight, and nutrient flow support marine life, while migratory birds use the cape as a resting point along seasonal routes. Posidi Cape represents a different kind of geography, not fixed, not monumental, but transitional. It is a reminder that some landscapes are defined not by permanence, but by continuous movement. Crete. Crete is not simply the largest island in Greece. It is a landmass with its own geological logic, its own historical timeline, and a cultural identity that developed long before classical Greece took shape. Stretching more than 260 kilometers from east to west, Crete lies at the crossroads of the Aegean Sea, the Libyan Sea, and the broader Mediterranean basin. Its position placed it directly along ancient maritime routes connecting Europe, Africa, and the Near East. Long before Athens rose to power, Crete was already a center of civilization. The island is dominated by three major mountain ranges: the White Mountains, Mount Ida, and the Dictys Mountains. These ranges run parallel to the coast, creating sharp contrasts between high-altitude plateaus and fertile lowlands. Snow remains on the peaks well into spring, while olive groves and vineyards thrive below. Crete is considered the birthplace of the Minoan civilization, one of Europe's earliest advanced societies. Beginning around 3000 BCE, the Minoans developed large urban centers, complex drainage systems, paved roads, and maritime trade networks that extended across the Mediterranean. Their cities, such as Knossos, were not fortified in the traditional sense, suggesting a society that relied on naval power rather than defensive walls. Archaeological evidence shows that Crete experienced multiple layers of occupation: Minoan, Mycenaean, Roman, Byzantine, Venetian, and Ottoman, each leaving visible marks on the landscape. Fortresses, monasteries, aqueducts, and harbor towns appear across the island, often built directly atop earlier foundations. Crete's coastline reflects its geological complexity. The north is shaped by long beaches and natural harbors, while the south drops sharply into deep waters, forming cliffs, gorges, and isolated coves. Samaria Gorge, one of the longest gorges in Europe, cuts through the White Mountains, revealing millions of years of tectonic movement. Despite centuries of foreign rule, Crete retained a strong local identity. Its villages, agricultural practices, and architecture reflect continuity rather than disruption. The island remains one of the most agriculturally productive regions in Greece, particularly known for olive oil wine and citrus cultivation. Crete stands not as a peripheral island, but as a foundational pillar of Greek history, a place where European civilization took form before it had a name.